In my eyes, Obsidian Entertainment are the best studio under the Xbox umbrella. Because of this, I have been looking forward to Avowed ever since its announcement back in 2020. Even with an overhaul in visuals from the first reveal, did it live up to my expectations? What's up? How's it going, people? Welcome to Casual Gamer Reviews. If you enjoy this video, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe, as it really helps the channel. I took my time with Avowed and really did as much as I possibly could in terms of side quests and exploration. I was a fraction over 60 hours when the credits rolled, reviewed on Xbox Series X. It's hard to come by old school RPGs nowadays, especially if you don't like the Bethesda formula or turn-based combat. With this in mind, I welcomed Avowed with open arms like a close friend I hadn't seen in decades. All of the elements of a classic RPG are here, with starting classes, a stat tree, a skill tree, equipment benefits, dialogue, skill checks, branching narratives, companion skills, and combat that can utilize melee, ranged magic, or a mixture of all of the above. The stat tree contains the attributes: might, constitution, dexterity, perception, intellect, and resolve. Each of these offer benefits that affect things like health, stamina, attack and defense power, mana, and resistances. However, in addition to this, these attributes also can unlock skill checks in dialogue choices. You may be able to get out of a combat encounter or trick your way into a stronghold as long as your stat passes the check. Much like RPGs of old, you will not get anywhere near enough points to level all these up, so sacrifices must be made. Then there is the skill tree. This is split into 5 separate branches: Fighter, Ranger, Wizard, Godlike, and Companion. These use a different pool of points than the attribute stats, and so can be unlocked in unison. Each branch is focused and can unlock new abilities as well as permanent buffs. Fighter looks towards heavy weapons, damage output, and defense increases. Ranger looks at distance weapons as well as survivability, and then Wizard is for magic weapons and unlocking spells to cast. You are not locked out of any of these based on your starting class, and so you can really take any route your heart desires. The 2 special branches here are the Godlike and Companion ones. Godlike abilities are specifically tied to story beats and side content and unlock unique buffs. Companion abilities once again use their own pool of points, and each companion has 4 skills you can upgrade and unlock. These abilities service the combat extremely well and keep it feeling constantly new. In fact, the combat is so versatile, I didn't stick to a weapon type for longer than a handful of hours of in-game time. Avowed utilizes the modern quality of life feature, where it is very easy to reset your skill point layout in both the stat and the skill trees, meaning you can switch your build whenever you want for a small monetary cost. What this meant for me was using every single weapon type and combination at some point in the game. Maybe I wanted a sword and board, or fancied a bow. Actually, I want to smash this Zorop up, so I'll try this new 2-handed axe I just found. Well, now I want to do some magic, so I have a wand and a grimoire, or even 2 wands for quick snappy attacks. My favorite combination was a wand in the right hand and a pistol in the left hand. It felt incredible. No matter what your preferred combat style is usually, there is no flavor of the month with Avowed. You will want to try every weapon type, and I guarantee you'll have a great time. The combat was the thing that concerned me at first blush with all the previews we had of the game, and I was very pleasantly surprised with how robust and enjoyable it is. Parrying felt great and didn't seem too difficult to execute. Dodging, on the other hand, felt clunky, as it is the same button as the jump with a directional input, but it sometimes would get conflated with jump, meaning I would just bounce towards attacks rather than dashing away. You can change the button mapping, but it was a strange input to begin with. The weapons and equipment in Avowed are split by quality: common, fine, exceptional, superb, and legendary. These can be found out in the world through exploration, bought in shops, rewarded through quests, or simply upgraded. You can upgrade any of your weapons, but the only armor you can upgrade is the chest piece. Gloves and greaves work in the same way as rings and amulets, in that they provide buffs rather than defensive stats, and I thought that was a fantastic addition. Given how restrictive the upgrade system is, which I'm about to get into, the fact that I didn't have to worry about upgrading my gloves and greaves and could swap them on the fly with no sunk costs was a great choice by the dev team. The way that upgrades work is that each quality tier has 3 levels. Once that piece of equipment is upgraded to level 3, you can then jump to the next quality via a cost of a rare resource. All of the upgrade materials are found in the future locations as you progress the game. For example, you will only find upgrade mats for common in Dawnshore, then fine in Emerald Stair, exceptional in Shatterscarp, and so on. Therefore, the game is all always pushing you forward in order to upgrade. However, I did literally everything this game could offer me, and while I never found myself struggling to upgrade, I always had just enough. If you're doing a casual playthrough, like I imagine most people will be, you will probably find yourself running out of materials quite quickly, which is sad because it restricts people experimenting with their weapons. Avowed shoots itself in the foot, as ultimately that means it hinders people from exploring its most refined and fun aspect. Tilting the scales back to the positive on this though was the crafting menu, which allowed you to break down weaker resources from previous areas to make the better ones. This was actually quite a refreshing take, as you don't see that nowadays with the recycling of older upgrade mats to make stronger ones. Adding some more fuel to the incredible inferno that is the combat is unique aspects. These are rare weapons and armor that can be discovered on your travels that are titled as unique because they possess an additional ability or abilities to their standard quality tier. For example, by the end I was using a pistol in my offhand. That unique aspect was massive stun on a charged attack. In my strong hand was a wand that inflicted fire damage in build-up. I came across unique weapons that inflicted bleed or poison or ice. Some had increased critical hit ratios or armors with additional elemental resistances. I found a shield that would have a chance to shoot spider's webs out on a successful parry and immobilize enemies. There were so many creative differences I came across, and trust me, this game does not shy away from them. There are loads to discover if you just explore a bit. Unique weapons have a special upgrade station at the party camp in which you can either replace the aspect with a stronger version of itself or change it to something preset that is completely different. More often than not, I would opt for the stronger version of the aspect, as the other aspect I would find to be less beneficial. The way the enemy difficulty works is also tied to equipment quality. If you have common equipment but the enemy indicators next to their health bar says they have fine equipment, you are gonna have a tough time, and so on. I hated this at first, as it is very heavily skewed at the beginning due to just not having any good equipment, but it becomes pretty unnoticeable by the end. Avowed does also have 5 difficulty settings, so you can tune this further to your tastes. There are more buffs you can get in the form of god totems. Each main area has its own god totem in which you can find the 6 fragments of. Each fragment offers a special buff and you can turn them on and off at the party camp. Only one god totem can be activated at one time, and so you must use all the fragments from that particular one. You can't pick and choose. Each time you venture outside, you will be accompanied by 2 of your 4 companions. Each companion has a special ability that can be used to get past obstacles. Aside from Yardsley's ability to dispel illusions, the envoy can do all of these abilities on their own. Therefore, outside of Yardsley, there is no real need to predetermine who you might need when going exploring, so take whoever you like the most. Each of them have special attacks tied to a radial wheel that can be unlocked in the tree I mentioned earlier. There was one thing I liked more than the combat, and that was exploration. In recent years, we have been treated to phenomenal exploration in games with the likes of The Legend of Zelda or Elden Ring. Now, I'm not saying Avowed is on the same level as these two, but I'm being deadly serious when I say it's damn close. There are so many hidden caves and inconspicuous structures off the beaten path to discover and pillage for treasures. And trust me, there are always treasures. There is nothing worse than when a game doesn't reward exploration, but Avowed showers you in rare loot and resources every single time. I never found myself wanting to rush through an area, and for pretty much the entire game the main quest was taking a back seat while I was constantly getting sidetracked just by exploring. I would also like to mention here how fantastic and generous the traversal is. The environments are made in a way that there always seems to be a path to progress vertically as well as horizontally, and the mantling felt really smooth. It reminded me of Dishonored without the blink ability. Part of this exploration is the chance encounters. One time I stumbled across a skeleton on a beach who wanted me to fight to the death against his hero to win a unique sword. Later in the game I was helping out some outcast dwarfs who had one of their own fall sick, only to discover he had been dead for days and they were using their friend's corpse as a distraction just to jump me. There was one point I sold my body to an animancer who uses corpses as farmhands. There were several more of these little moments that make the player's experience feel really worthwhile, and I applaud Obsidian for this. Aesthetically, Avowed is one of the prettiest games I have ever played, so much so that it is absolutely criminal that Obsidian haven't included a photo mode. The environments are stunning and the lighting and reflections are very eye-catching. The glint of sun off your gloves or weapons was always a source of beauty. I thought the character models looked good. They didn't seem to have the dead faces I'd expect, so that is definitely a tick. The day and night cycle was implemented well, and I honestly couldn't say which I preferred. Both brought their own visual treats. Another big standout is the set dressing. amazing. Each little thing tells a whole story. In some instances, you do not need a note lying around to explain, you can simply look around and the scene will tell you. To give one example, I came across a woodsman's cabin where inside there was a slaughtered woman with blood everywhere. Across from the way, amongst a clearing of chopped trees, I found the woodsman himself, infected with the dream scourge, and he came swinging at me. No notes necessary, you may not even come across his cabin on your playthrough, but the level of detail that the devs chose to input on the off chance someone might discover it is phenomenal. There were several instances of this and I can't stress enough how impressive it was. However, it is not all rainbows and butterflies. I did have some gripes with the visuals. Firstly is the enemy variety. It's not deep enough. Outside of your humanoid variants, which really can be pulled together, there are very few enemy types. I understand that they wanted to make a smaller game, but in reality, it's not what I would consider a small game. There's 60 plus hours of content here as I have shown, so there really should be some more enemy types in my opinion. Admittedly, if the combat wasn't so fun, it would be more of an issue, but there really is only so many bears or lizard men I want to kill. Secondly, I was consistently getting the same visual bug. I was playing in performance mode, but for some reason the game would sometimes render characters in 30 FPS whilst in a conversation. For example, you could be having a conversation with your party at a camp and 4 of you will be running at 60 FPS, but one of them would be running at 30, and it was very jarring. Sometimes it would be a character in the background, which was even more off-putting because you would be watching 2 characters at the same time on screen rendered at different frame rates. I finished this game a month after launch and it still doesn't seem to be patched out yet. None of this is game breaking or even hindering, as it only happened occasionally during conversations, but it is worth mentioning. As I mentioned earlier, there are performance modes, but unlike the usual 2 of quality and performance, Avowed also has a third mode called balance, which targets 40 FPS. I played on performance mode and outside of the bug I just mentioned, I didn't notice any real issues. The game still looked awesome, but if you're a real pixel peeper and can't stand 30 FPS, there is this balance option available to you. This title also offers both first and third person play perspectives. Usually for an RPG like this, I would play in third person due to the combat, and I did try it out, but I cannot stress enough how much better first person is. The combat feels so much more refined in first person and it really gets you in the heart of the action. The lifeless swings that you'd see in an Elder Scrolls is just not here. I would recommend first person all day. The Avowed music is written and composed by Cameron Gorham, and it is perfectly fitting for an epic adventure RPG. Big cinematic scores spanning the various emotional story beats. There is a strong voice actor lineup with Mara Janot playing Giatta, Scott White playing Marius, and Anjali Bhimani playing Yardsley. These are all industry veterans, and between them you see credits like Spider-Man 2, Diablo 4, Starfield, Destiny 2, and Remnant 2 to name a few. The standout for me, and I'm sure many others, was Kai, voiced by Brandon Keener. Brandon, of course, is best known for playing Garrus in the Mass Effect series, and he definitely keeps his sex appeal in this game as he plays a sexy fishman. Amphibian fantasy aside, Kai is an excellently voiced character and he is a pleasure to have around. He was essentially a permanent member of my party. In Avowed, you play as the Imperial Envoy, sent by the Emperor to the island called the Living Lands to investigate a mysterious disease. This disease, named the Dream Scourge, is thought to be a disease of the soul, and so the Emperor has tasked you with finding and preferably eliminating the source. The setting is in the Pillars of Eternity universe, but if you are not familiar with all the lore in these games, then do not fret, as there is a nifty dialogue tool that allows you to look into what certain words and terms mean. When you are in a conversation, sometimes you will see a word or phrase highlighted. This means you can click into it to have a breakdown of what the word or phrase is in layman's terms, which is genius. The Envoy is a godlike, which means they are touched by a god, and that in itself leads to many horrible interactions as you are treated differently because of this. The story itself touches on religion, political philosophy, and matters of colonization and oppression. I thought it was very entertaining throughout, although I will say at times it was slightly hard to grasp what was going on. By the time I had to make major story decisions, I did have an understanding of my choices, so that's the main thing. There are several routes and choices to make throughout the story, so everyone's mileage may vary in what they get out of it, but I was satisfied with my choices challenges and outcomes. Avowed is a fully fledged RPG, and so it will come as no surprise that there are plenty of side quests and side activities to do. I would consider it pretty standard for an RPG to have some side quests be so good that they trump the main story, and that is also the case here with Avowed. There are no simple fetch quests to memory, and almost all of them were very enjoyable. Each area has area-specific quests as well. For example, each main city will have a bounty board in which you can test your mettle against a finite number of mini-bosses. Then there is the Paragon caches, which are puzzle-like dungeons you must navigate to get a big treasure at the end. Some side quests span the whole game, like the map cartography or the Star Metal Forge, which is always satisfying to see through to the end. Each companion has their own quests of varying interest. Marius's was a great one that instantly comes to mind. I will say here though that the companions seem very skewed in terms of how fleshed out they are. I found Yardsley so much less interesting than the other characters, and that was a shame, although she does have some of the funniest dialogue. You can tell that Kai got the most attention, which isn't a bad thing as he is a good character, but it does take away from the others slightly. In addition to the quests, there are things called memories and strangled Adra to find. Each location has one of these hidden away somewhere, and they can give you special powers and abilities, so are always worth trying to discover. In my 60-ish hours, I did everything that was available to me, and I had no outstanding quests or collectibles in my journal. There are multiple endings to Avowed, as well as some side quests being tied to story decisions, and so I would say there is a good level of replayability as well. Avowed is the fantasy RPG I have been waiting a long time for. I would not compare Avowed to Skyrim because it is a game that thrives in its own world lore and systems. It earns its respect and individuality. The combat went from being concerning on preview to amazing when hands-on. The exploration is some of the best we've seen in recent years, and it is very rewarding. The art style and environments are sleek and beautiful, and when coupled with a solid voice cast, provides an unforgettable experience. The story was great and had a satisfying conclusion in the path I chose. What would really uplift this to a masterpiece would be to add some more sparkle to the companions, as well as ironing out some of those visual bugs. Obsidian Entertainment have provided me with some of my favorite gameplay experiences in the last 5 years with The Outer Worlds, Grounded, and especially Pentiment. I'm thrilled to say that this high bar has not been lowered. Avowed gets a casual gamer score of 9 out of 10. If you enjoy this content, please leave a like and subscribe, and check out the channel for more reviews, spoilercasts, and analysis. I have some great spoilercasts up now for Death Stranding and Lost Records Bloom and Rage, which I had a lot of fun making. Leave your comments below about what you thought of Avowed, and for everything casual gamer, keep it here. Peace and love.